Welcome to Clause 8, presented by TradeSpace, a revolutionary end-to-end AI-powered IP management platform that helps companies unlock the value of their IP. For today's episode, we're doing something a little bit different. Eli had the opportunity to attend the Consero IP Forum in October earlier this year. In attendance were inspiring IP executives like Dimitri, lead counsel at Cruise, Scott Miller, chief IP counsel at Zoetis, Joel Meyer, VP of IP and Innovation Strategy at Digimarc, and Praveer Gupta, director of Patents and Innovation Strategy at Uniphore. Eli had a chance to speak with each of these people and more. So today, we're bringing you a compilation of some of our favorite highlights of those conversations. If you like them, make sure to keep an ear out because we'll be featuring more highlights in future episodes. Today, you'll hear about some common pain points everyone shares, like communicating the value of IP and the evolving landscape of AI. With that, we'll start off with Dimitri, lead counsel at Cruise.
Thank you for joining Clause 8. Introduce yourself and tell us what your IP role is.
Sure, yeah, thanks for having me, Eli. I'm Dimitri. I'm a lead counsel for IP at Cruise. Cruise is a self-driving car company. We operate completely self-driving cars in mostly Texas and a little bit in Arizona. So it's just like calling a car with Uber, but there's no one in the car. It just arrives, you jump in, it takes you where you want to go. And so I handle a lot of the IP, particularly patents related to our self-driving technologies and some ancillary things that you wouldn't even think about from a self-driving car company, but they exist and they're really important.
So what are the IP issues you're thinking about these days?
The space is not well defined right now. There's a bunch of companies, there's a few companies now, and there's been a lot of consolidation into sort of larger startups that are associated with their own large companies. And it's not quite clear definitively where the technology is going to go. And so we file a lot of patents related to technology. And when you file a patent, you have this idea of where the technology is right now, but in a year or two from when they're actually going to be prosecuted, things might have changed a lot. So one of the things that keeps me up is understanding exactly when we're prosecuting it, are we prosecuting what we thought what we were doing a year or two ago or 3 years ago, or are we prosecuting what we're doing right now? And to really keep up on the tech, being integrated with the engineers, not just leaving it at when the disclosure meeting happened, but sort of re-engaging with those engineers periodically and really understanding where we are right now and seeing, did we actually capture that back in the day when we filed the application? Do we need to file a new application? Can we pull it out from what we have? Because it's so rapidly changing.
Yeah. There's the fact that there are some very large companies that I guess that are involved, interested in self-driving, that have huge patent portfolios. How does that impact what you're doing and what you're thinking about?
Yeah, our patents are mostly defensive, and we're trying to prevent some situation where we wouldn't be able to operate because another large company that's done great work wants to assert their patents against us. So we're always mindful of these other companies, and we try to work together with the other companies. We co-founded an organization called the Allied Transportation Association with some of the companies like Zoox, which is their parent company is Amazon, and we work with Uber and Neuro, and so we come together to discuss IP issues and to make sure that sort of patent war hopefully does not exist. It never comes to fruition. But we're always mindful that the other companies are out there, and to be frank, I'm hopeful that we all succeed. I'm hopeful because if they don't succeed, it's very unlikely that we will succeed, and probably vice versa.
What is your, in your day-to-day job, what is like the number one pain point? Like what is...
Just snap my fingers and be away with it.
Yeah.
I think when you look at self-driving cars, you just think about the car and the sensors and maybe perhaps the software stack. But there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. Like we do a ton of simulation. We have a lot of people just working on simulating. So before we put the cars on the road with some sort of software that we can figure out what are the good things and the bad things in simulation. And there's a whole myriad of things that you have to consider for simulation, and some of these ancillary things that you wouldn't even think of. And so just keeping up on all these different technologies, not just the car, but all the background technology, the operations, when you're scaling on such a large, in each individual city, it takes a lot of background operations, a lot of technology to keep that flowing nicely. One of the things that I think is tough, I think in any company that's doing a lot of things, is making sure you're not just getting just one set of technologies, one set of disclosures, one set of patents. I always think about all the people that are not coming to talk to us.
Yeah.
And a lot of our job is just marketing, getting out there and talking to these different groups, making sure that they understand what patents are. There's a lot of misconceptions about what patents are and what we're going to use them for. So talking to them, making sure we're getting people to talk to us. I always fear all the things we're not hearing.
Communicating and marketing the value of IP is a common pain point we hear from IP leaders on Clause 8. So what can we do about it? Our next guest provides some advice that you can start on right away.
So my name is Scott Miller, and I'm the Chief IP Counsel at Zoetis. Zoetis is in the animal healthcare space and headquartered in New Jersey, but global Fortune 500 company with revenues of about $9 billion a year, and largely focused on therapeutics, monoclonal antibodies, small molecules, vaccines, and diagnostics, addressing animal healthcare needs both on the companion animal side and on the livestock side.
So what is the role of IP and all that?
Yeah, so IP, just as in a human healthcare company, is material to the material franchises at the company. And certainly there's a large part of our focus and impact is on innovation protection, harvesting and protection. Also, just as in any human healthcare company, there's navigating risk, navigating competitors, understanding competitive activity, and all the other elements involved in intellectual property protection, trademarks, trade secrets, use of artificial intelligence, kind of everything that you'd imagine. All those things are important to us.
In your day-to-day role, any particular pain points that you think you could maybe snap your fingers and be easier?
Yeah, pain points. I like solving problems. I think many attorneys like problems. That's why we're hired, is to deal with problems. One of the things when I think of pain points, I think of the behaviors that I think lead to a successful IP team, and then which ones of those are kind of the hard ones that we're struggling with right now. And I had recently had a face-to-face meeting with my entire team in New Jersey, and we were just going through some of the behaviors that we think are best-in-class behaviors for IP attorneys, and then we graded ourselves. I forced the team I think there was 10 behaviors, pick 1 red and 4 yellow. So force people to think really critically. The one that scored the red was quantify and communicate the value we add to the business. And so I think that is one that we constantly struggle when we're doing our work, we're getting our patents allowed, we're navigating risk, we're thinking about things for the future, is how do we quantify that value and communicate it to the business in a relevant and resonant way. And so that's something that we're always trying, and the audience might be slightly different. It might be the board, it might be the CEO, it might be R&D leaders. How do we package and communicate and tell our IP story in a way that reminds people what our value proposition is, the impact that we're having, the return on investment they're getting by putting their money, the choices we're making and the priorities we're making. How do we communicate that story, quantify and communicate it? So that, to me, is a challenge.
That's interesting because that's one of the common themes that comes up on Clause 8. Whatever it says, how do you tell the story about IP? Yes. How do you prove your value within the company? So I'm curious if there's anything you could share about that's been effective for you within your company.
Yes. So one thing that I try and tell the team is really pay attention to the slide decks and the visuals that the business is using in their meetings to talk about their work, whether it's financial documents or product timelines or bubbles, charts, or however the business is telling their story. Watch those slides and think, how could I adapt those into an IP slide? This is a format the business is used to. Every company is going to be a little bit different. But people when they see that you're echoing or utilizing the visuals and the kind of thinking that they've already got used to in a cadenced way, right? The business, every quarter, you see the same slide deck. People get used to that. They know how to look at it, and they know how to dissect it. If we in IP can take advantage of those and leverage those same types of visuals and thinking and produce those again in a kind of cadenced way where every quarter the business is seeing this is the IP story, they get used to that. I think When one of the things I've seen that's less effective is where kind of every quarter you're trying to reinvent the way you tell the story. I think the other thing that's important is to really think about what's actionable and relevant on that timeline for the audience that you're presenting to. I think, again, one of the directionally less effective practices that I've seen people fall into is where they get too far in the weeds as IP attorneys, talking about details that are really not relevant to the audience because they're interesting or because we're comfortable there as IP practitioners. We're comfortable living there. So really just thinking about what is going to be important for this person at this time.
No, I think that's great advice, coming into their world instead of dragging them into yours.
Yes, and I think there is a feeling that IP is special or that somehow you can't tell the story that way. I think people get cautious about calibrating risk and thinking about percentages and trying to put numbers on things. What I tell my team is, in finance, the business, they're also making predictions. We see the numbers, we see, well, we're going to make this amount of money, or this is the growth we're projecting. Those are all best guesses. People are comfortable with the fact that you are doing the best job you can to make predictions. And so I think in intellectual property, particularly many of us started as outside counsel, where you're unwilling to commit yourself. You want to have a lot of caveats. You want to say this or that. You don't want to be wrong ever. You want to give yourself wiggle room. I think one of the luxuries of being in-house counsel is you can build your credibility by showing how you did the math and coming up with a number and explaining, this is my best prediction.
Another common pain point we hear about on Clause 8, artificial intelligence. So it's no surprise that AI is a topic that came up with our next guest, Joel Meyer.
Joel Meyer. I am the VP of IP and Innovation Strategy at Digimarc Corporation.
Joel has had the opportunity to witness the evolution of IP over the past 25 years and where it's headed now with AI.
It's been super fun because IP and patents in particular have been a core part of the strategy since the beginning of our company. We are a pioneer of a technology called digital watermarking, which is a way of embedding data and media of all kinds. It can be physical objects or movies or music. And at the time, it was really a kind of a pioneering technology for securing documents like counterfeit returns of banknotes, but also protecting the movie industry and the music industry from copying. And after the bubble burst, the technology went out of favor in the digital domain, but we pursued a number of applications in a variety of counterfeit deterrence applications and physical object watermarking applications. Today, it's having a revival in the world of generative AI as a tool to ensure the authenticity and provenance of digital media. I've had the joy of navigating the IP strategy through all the twists and turns of this technology as it's evolved over the years.
Can you talk a little bit about that evolution?
I think over the span of my career, we've really seen the rise of the strength of the IP protection system, namely the patent system, and then, frankly, some challenges that have occurred after the Alice decision and the American Invents Act in 2012-2013 timeframe. Over that time span, there's been a siege on the patent system, a weakening of the patent protections. It's really forced IP leadership to be nimble and be creative about how to protect intellectual property, how to protect that competitive advantage. Patents still play a vital role, but have to be creative about using other forms of protection, bolstering trade secret protection, and having a robust both patent and trade secret protection regime, as well as employing self-help and in the types of business models that you deploy so that the IP is protected by the way in which you monetize the IP through licensing or subscription models for the technology, where your IP is protected based on how the technology is consumed and accessed by your partners and downstream customers.
Tell us a little bit more about that business model piece. What are the business models that you were able to use maybe in the past you have to be more careful about now, or you have to adjust?
Yeah, there's a couple of different aspects. When you have broad pioneering patents at the onset of a technology. The strategy there could be, as we had in our early days, that building core patents, a portfolio of core patents, and then licensing those patents to fields of use. So there may be an industry where we as a small company couldn't actually deploy products in an ecosystem like the consumer electronics industry or for audience measurement. And in the media industries, it made much more sense to essentially license the patents to the larger players in the ecosystem. So patent licensing made sense. As the years go by, monetizing your inventions in a classic way by creating a barrier to entry around your products and services makes more sense as the technology matures and is used in more applications. Over this arc of my career, protecting this technology and setting strategy, it's gone through that arc of raw kind of IP licensing, then technology licensing, in the middle kind of using the technology to form ventures with companies where you can exploit the IP on their core business, but then joint venture to develop new applications for the IP so you can expand the addressable market. And then ultimately, a more classic approach as the technology gets more mature is to use patents on specific improvements and use cases to protect and create a barrier around a product, a particular use case.
I'm sure you've hit upon a lot of the issues that kind of you're thinking about, and there are maybe worrying you. Anything in particular these days that you're like keeping you up at night?
It's a great question. I think great potential is the use of AI tools. Enhance the ability to do more with less and to be able to hit above your weight class as a smaller company, to be able to generate IP and higher quality IP in a shorter period of time. Marrying that in-depth knowledge of the technology and the industry with a tool that can rapidly help you construct a really valuable patent asset is really intriguing. And I think we're just at the forefront of being able to tap that technology.
And I guess when you're talking about that piece, is it being able to file more applications more quickly? Is it making sure you have the pipeline from the engineers who are coming up with these innovations, making that more seamless? What part of it?
That's a great question. I know that there are tools that are being developed for all aspects of invention, harvesting, and vetting. I see the potential in really delivering higher quality, both in the drafting of the application, the speed of drafting a higher quality application, and also helping with the vetting of the prior art and using the tools to make sure that we're understanding some of the closest prior art. And that really has been a hallmark of our strategy of creating high quality IP over the years, is really being able to understand the prior art and making sure that the IP is being developed in a way that's going to be robust to prior art challenges. So yeah. I see that as a value as well.
Yeah, one thing that you mentioned before is you're concerned about making sure your protection is broad enough. And I don't know if for patents, obviously it's the claims that are broad enough. Is there any strategies in line with that? Because obviously you're worried about the prior art, which is in some ways contrary to the goal of, you're trying to make sure that those claims you get allowed don't get invalidated, but you're also making sure they're broad enough to cover whatever might be out there. Any strategy that you've adopted that has been helpful for Digimarc to be more secure that you're getting that breadth of protection as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's any real magic to it. I think to the extent that you have an understanding of adjacent technologies and how those might be used in conjunction with the core invention, you can maybe anticipate more. We tend to develop patent specifications that we have not only in-depth kind of focus on maybe a core innovation, but really trying to build out and anticipate the adjacencies, the disruptive technologies that might be used as alternatives for certain components of the invention. And we found that not necessarily any magic to that, but just to the extent that you can build in those alternatives that can anticipate how the market might go, that can give you that broader protection over time.
So you can file like continuation applications at later points in time to cover whatever might come?
Yeah, any entity that's looking for patent to be more aggressive patent monetization, a continuation strategy is a must. It's a vital part of the strategy. I was a little dismayed to see over the years there's been a couple of runs by some by the kind of the anti-patent community to really scale back continuation practice. Yeah. But I think that's really a key part of our patent system, that you should be able to harvest all of the innovations as long as you've adequately disclosed and supported those in your original specification.
Yeah, but it's interesting that it's not something you can start thinking about after your parent application gets allowed. The fact that you're going to be filing cons is something you really have to think about from the beginning of drafting that application, that if you do want to cover things beyond what's in your original claims, then you have to have support for that. Yeah. That's how you'll plan then.
Yeah, and that's nothing different with AI technologies. Not only is AI technology something that's a great productivity tool to generate IP, but it's actually, in many ways, and in our case, it's a tool to create implementations. Actually, it's embodiments of our technology. A lot of the components in the processing are AI, so algorithm design has fundamentally changed. It used to be hand-optimized algorithms, and now it's design a neural network and let the network optimize the design of the algorithm based on a variety of different loss functions that are programmed in, so now you have to think about, I now need to enable the whole new crop of invention that's going to occur around the use of AI to create alternative embodiments. You have to contemplate all those inventions as well, which then causes you to, again, think through the patent eligibility and making sure that you have enough to then allow for patent eligible subject matter when you are describing embodiments that are AI-based embodiments as well.
So what happens when these pain points converge? When we're trying to communicate the value of IP inside an organization that's working on the forefront of AI issues? For this, we go to our last guest, Praveer Gupta.
So when it's Praveer Gupta, I had patents and innovation strategy for Uniphore. Uniphore is an AI native company in the field of speech analytics and facial expression analytics. Speech analytics as it relates to helping call center agents in their work, and facial expression helps salespeople understand better about their customers. So you can understand there's a lot of analytics that's going on there, and generative AI has really changed a lot of how the technology is implemented. Now, as to my role there is I'm responsible for the entire innovation, so I actually hold workshops regularly to farm out inventions and then take them all the way to the finish line by filing patents using outside counsel or in-house. And I also then am de facto for all IP, so do trademarks, etc.
And why is your company spending time on IP?
Mostly because I convinced them to. I think they want to go IPO, and the founder actually himself is pretty savvy about patents. One of the chief mentors is John Chambers from Cisco, so that kind of helps put that lineage back in. So the patents that's why is center. They understand that it's important. They also are at an early stage. AI is relatively new the way it's being evolved, so it's a reasonably white space, and I showed them through competitive analytics that the older companies' filings are going down, whereas a lot of newer companies are starting to go up. So that kind of tells you that you're at a cusp of some sort of technological shift, and if you want to dominate this space, you might as well file a lot more patents.
And something that came up today, actually, and talking to others, but also a common theme of a podcast is how do you communicate the value of IP within the company? So you kind of sold on the vision to the executives through the Cisco heritage, but within the company, how do you do that on that?
It's hard. One of the things like the issues that keep me up at night, that kind of thing, it's one of my key things, the company culture. And so my only access to that is, one thing I did was I deliberately moved to the engineering organization, so I'm not a part of legal. And I tell people that, I studied law, but I don't tell them I'm a lawyer. I said I tell them I'm an engineer, and I spend a lot of time with them. So whether it's workshops or just coming to the office only for talking to them, that's what I'm doing right now. It's working out well.
And that's how you're able to get back to sleep.
That's true, yeah. But in addition to that, one of the other things that worry me, just having that culture it's missing out on innovations, because when I'm so close to them and I know that these guys are telling me only now when they're halfway building the product, or sometimes when the marketing's already talked to the customer, has told them that we're going to offer this. And I was like, you guys, we had to file this like a month ago. So,
And I'm sure your company is based in the Bay Area, kind of a fast-moving innovation culture. And how do you make sure that things like that don't happen?
I try my best. I would be lying if I said I make sure of it.
Yeah.
But essentially, I'm holding workshops, I'm holding trainings. It's a part of now our onboarding that everybody understands that. And I'm also even training up people on trade secrets, like to understand that you need to start drawing now a clear line between what's patents, what's trade secrets, and things.
One thing I hear is that sometimes when you're encouraging patenting within a company, sometimes the people who have a time to file invention disclosure forms are sometimes not invention disclosure forms that you need, right? Like that.
Oh, no, not at all.
So how do you balance that to kind of keep that going?
Oh, yeah.
It's
a good question, because here's what I've done till now, and it's worked is I say, don't worry about a disclosure. There's a disclosure form. You actually can just literally go to the webpage, our internet portal, and answer questions. But I know they won't do it, so I say, just write me a text message saying, I have an idea. Send me one email with a subject line of an idea. Just do that much, and I will do the rest for you.
Okay.
But obviously, it does not scale, right? Right now, I'm facing those issues. So till now, it has worked. So you need somebody who's heavy lifting this stuff, but it's really hard to do. And it's something that really, if it made it easy for those guys to just put in their ideas easily, it'll become much better.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like a big thing filling out a form,
No.
but for somebody who isn't regularly doing it, it's like a thing.
They just won't do it. I have people who would, and I have this great idea. I'm going to write it after this meeting, after that. It's 1 year, the guy's saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So then you finally have to sit down with him and tell him, okay, what is the idea? I don't want to be laughed at by other people, because you didn't put in the idea in the disclosure.
So another thing you mentioned is the really trade secrets, and you're hearing more conversations about companies increasingly relying on trade secrets because for various reasons, including that they don't think they can get sufficient protection just by filing patents. But that's like another very complex area to navigate, keeping things actually secret while you're trying to, at the same time, educating them about disclosing stuff. How do you fit that in?
It's very tough. When I've tried to educate people on trade secret, they actually get almost offended in the sense that, oh, are you telling me that I can't use my brain anymore? So it's really hard to explain how trade secrets are to the technologists. Even trying to say that you need to differentiate, have different zones in the office, because of what you do should not be overlapping where it does not need to. So what we're doing currently is we're trying to tell them that, look, if you do not keep it a secret right now, you lose your competitive advantage, and that your stock value goes down or something or the other. But there's no easy way to do the trade secret thing. It's just you have to basically, first you have to draw them out to tell you what their idea is. Then you have to figure out, okay, which way are you going to go? And sometimes even though we know the detection is not easy, detection of infringement is not easy, we'll still file a patent just for the prestige value of it.
Yeah.
But where we can, where we absolutely know that nobody can actually ever figure it out, that's where I actually put my foot down and say, like, keep it a trade secret.
Thank you so much for listening to this special episode of Clause 8. We hope you enjoyed listening to highlights from Eli's conversations at the Consero IP Forum. To get more conversations with leaders in IP, subscribe to voiceofip.com and we'll send you new episodes every other week. Already a subscriber? We would love if you took a moment to share this episode with others you think would enjoy Clause 8. Thank you.